Capcom really pulled a fast one on us, didn't they? Hey everyone, I'm going to be talking about all the balance changes that Ryu received for Season 5 of Street Fighter V. Now, on the whole, Ryu got pretty much nothing but buffs, yet again, so of course, I'm quite happy about that. So, let's get right into it. So, first up, Ryu's Vitality and Stun were both increased, so he can take a little bit more damage, and it'll be a bit harder to stun him. Now, before you go completely nuts over this, this was a general change. A lot of characters got this, so, you know, it's not exclusive to Ryu, but not every single character got it, so, you know, he's got that going for him. Next up is Ryu's Crouching Medium Kick. Just like Season 3, this move actually got another increase to its range, so it'll hit just a little bit further now. It's not quite as significant as the buff he got in Season 3, but, you know, more range on Crouching Medium Kick, that's definitely not something I'm going to be complaining about. And not only that, but it is now -1 instead of -3 on block. This is good for a number of reasons. It's a little bit safer to throw out, I guess, because you're at less of a disadvantage, so you can maybe throw out like a light or a medium if you're calling out the opponent on something. So, you know, it's still -1, so you're not going to get a whole lot off of this, but another important thing is that it seemed to increase the block stun, so it'll be a bit more consistent when canceling into Fireball, so opponents with specific V skills, or even just opponents who try and jump over it, will have a little bit of a harder time doing that, which is of course a very good thing. Next up is Ryu's Jodan Sanrangeki, which, if you don't know what that actually is, it's his two-hitting target combo with the standing medium punch into the heavy punch. Now, on hit, you're only -2 instead of -9. So, if you go for this and the opponent's crouching, you're not completely screwed, which, you know, that's nice. This is definitely a buff. I think being minus is still a little silly, but, you know, it's a target combo, it's an easy combo, so there is that, I guess. And another change is that on block, that's the wrong list. On block, you're only -9 instead of -16. So you're still ridiculously punishable, you're just slightly less ridiculously punishable. You are +5 if you activate V-Trigger. I don't know if it's just a change to the block stun itself. I don't remember what the advantage was, but I'm sure it's more, so, you know, that's good. Alright, next up is a change to Ryu's medium Shoryuken. Now, the cancel time into Super is the same as the light and heavy. Now, I've never really canceled a medium Shoryuken in the Super, so I didn't know there was a difference anyway, but now there's not, so cool, I guess. Okay, so next, Ryu's Collarbone Breaker, or his overhead, is now -7 instead of -6. This is Ryu's one and only nerf, and it's not really that big of a deal because this is another general change. You are a tiny bit more punishable, but generally if your opponent manages to block your overhead, you're probably going to get punched anyway. So, you know, for being Ryu's one and only nerf, I don't think this is that bad. Next up is a buff to Ryu's medium and heavy Tatsus. Now the first hit on both of them actually have quite a bit more range. This is good for a couple of reasons. For the medium version, now you can actually combo into the medium Tatsu from max range, and you don't have to worry about it missing if the opponent's standing. This is nice because, you know, let's say you get a max range Solar Plexus Strike and you actually confirm it properly, then you'll be able to go into the Tatsu and get better pressure compared to just a medium Donkey Kick, granted, only if the opponent is standing. Now, the heavy one It doesn't really do a whole lot for combos because it would always work anyway, but it actually has a ton of range now. Like, you go super far with this, you might be able to react to fireballs and go straight through them if you're quick enough. So that's definitely a very interesting change. You might not want to do it with the medium one since you need to be still pretty close for it, but the heavy one, I mean, that goes really far. I can definitely see some people with their godlike reactions using this in a lot of tricky ways. Next up is Ryu's EX Jodan Sokudogari, or the Donkey Kick as it's popularly called. This move received a couple of buffs, so he actually moves a bit further forward, which will help in combos. And if you're willing to do it, just yeet it out there. I would not recommend that, but it is an option. And another big buff is that you can actually cancel the ending lag into a Tatsu. This is very significant because Ryu's Tatsumaki gives him much better advantage, or Oki, if you don't miss it. And a really good thing about this is that if you were to do the Donkey Kick and go into Shoryuken, if the opponent does a back roll, they'll pretty much be too far away for Ryu to get any pressure. So this Tatsu maneuver completely alleviates that. You'll be able to pressure the opponent no problem, and it does quite a bit more damage than just going for a setup. Because before, you'd every so often see Ryu do a crouching light punch there, but now you don't need to do that. You just do the Tatsu, you get a bit more damage, you get more advantage than the light punch. And yeah, overall really good buff. An interesting thing here is that if you're in the corner and do it, you can actually even cancel into the heavy version, but this is not likely going to happen very often, is even just being a little bit further out by just doing two mediums like this, and it doesn't work. So I wouldn't really advise going for that. The only time it would ever really work is if you are right in the corner and then you do the medium punch and the crouching hard punch combo, which you could just do the Tatsu anyway, but if you want to get that a little bit of extra damage and you're good at decision making, you can do that. And one last change is that it says they changed how the cancel works from his standing hard punch with V trigger 1 and 2. I don't really know how. It just says it changed the properties when performed as a cancel, so I'm assuming it's good. But you know, overall, the EX Donkey Kick buffs are definitely going to help Ryu. They're going to help his pressure. It's going to help him with consistency. It's just really good. Alright, next up is Ryu's Mind's Eye, or his V-Skill 1, the parry. And it wasn't buffed as much as I was hoping for, but it did get a small buff by expanding the parry hitbox. This will do a couple of things. It'll make it a little bit easier to parry attacks from really far away. So, you know, you might be able to get those longer range parries, but I think the main use of this will come against fireballs and stuff. So like, if the opponent wants to zone you or whatever, that's not the right one. I don't remember which one it was. That's not the right one either. Well, you're just gonna have to take my word on it then. It should be a little bit easier to parry fireballs. The timing's still gonna be tight, but it might just be a little bit easier. So yeah, it's a buff. It's a small one, but it's a buff nonetheless. Alright, now for probably the most significant buff that Ryu has gotten in a long time, actually, and that's with his V-Trigger 1. Now, the automatic decay of the V-Trigger 1 was decreased from 1,000 frames to 800, so it doesn't last as long. Now, before you start going crazy and say, what the heck, why'd they nerf the duration of Ryu's V-Trigger? Well, let me tell you, buddy. They actually made it so fireballs and uppercuts do not drain the gauge at all. Ryu can just do as many of these as he wants. It's ridiculous. I love it. After 4 years, ladies and gentlemen, we can officially say Ryu has a good V-trigger. We've done it. It's finally happened. You know, all the little buffs that Ryu gets and some of the not so little buffs that he gets during his V-trigger, he can actually properly utilize them now because it just lasts an actually decent amount of time. The only thing that'll drain it will be the super, just like before. I don't consider that to be that big of a deal. That's fine. But just, like, when you activate V-Trigger, it's basically fireball time, baby. I mean, you get these zero lag fireballs and the increased damage on the uppercuts. This will help Ryu's pressure and his zoning capabilities at the same time. Because again, he gets to use it for more than 5 seconds. It's actually good. Ryu has a good V-trigger. I cannot stress this enough. After 4 years of mediocrity, Ryu finally has a good V-trigger. We have done it, lads. It has happened. Good V-trigger. Finally. Okay, so last, Ryu actually gets a little bit more range on his super after canceling from an uppercut. It's not significant as you saw there, but if you can time it properly, you actually might be able to get anti-air in the super. This is a very nice way to reward skilled players, as again, it still requires tight timing. It's not going to be easy, but if you can land it, this is going to be one of the most devastating anti-airs in the game. Again, if you can land it. This applies to both versions. It says it specifically. So, yeah, that's not going to work, but, you know, again, it's going to be tight. You're not going to be able to do anti-air super, especially if you screw it up. It's not going to be easy, but, again, those pro players, they'll be doing it. They can get that super, and bam, 432 damage with a counter hit. That is not bad. So, those were all the changes to Ryu's existing moves. But of course, like every other character, Ryu got a brand new technique with his V-Skill 2, the Thrust Strike. Now, I'm sure most of us were underwhelmed when we first saw this, as we all thought it would basically be like another parry, but that is not what it is at all. This is definitely not a parry. This is entirely its own thing. So, the best way I can describe it is that it is a long-ranged neutral tool. This move has more range than any of Ryu's other attacks, and while its startup is slow, it of course is pretty safe to throw out there because of the invincibility frames on a large portion of the startup. Not only that, but it's actually pretty safe because it's only -4. So if you space it properly and land like just the tip of this thing, like you hit with Ryu's knuckles, you can actually be almost 100% safe because you will be out of range from a lot of lights. So for this move only being -4, that is pretty darn good, I must say. This is, like I said, a very safe move to throw out if spaced properly. I mean, you probably will eat a combo if you just throw it out when you're right in front of your opponent's face. So, you know, this is a long-ranged move, and it should be treated kind of similarly to like Ken's standing hard kick, or maybe a standing medium kick. You know, you don't want to use it when you're right here. You want to use it when you're way over here. So that's its general function, but what about like the attack itself? This is of course an attack. It hits the opponent. In terms of like a damaging move, it's not super good. I'd say that's the main balancing thing here. It's super safe, but you don't get a whole lot from it, aside from when specific conditions are met. The punch itself only does 60 damage, which is the same as a medium punch. So, you know, you're not going to land many KOs with this thing in a combo or whatever. But, again, that's not really what it's for. However, you can get some good damage off of it, of course, if you land the counter. The counter does increase the damage by doubling it. You actually get 120 damage. So that is quite nice. And another thing is that you actually get a really good amount of advantage after it. The opponent is far away, but you do have enough to dash up and actually do, as you saw there, a standing hard punch. You know, I didn't even do dash as soon as I could, but I was able to get a meaty there. So, you know, especially if you're close to the corner, this is going to be very good for pressure. If you land it, but again, you don't want to spam it. This is not something you want to spam, but it will be useful. Now, for actually getting a good amount of damage, you'll need to land the counter and have V-trigger ready to activate. So with it ready to activate, you can cancel into it on the second hit, and you get quite a few juggle opportunities afterwards. You can dash up and do a light Shoryuken, specifically the light one. Medium and heavy are both too slow. Of course, EX will work, and of course, timing it properly, that'll be a big help. So you can combo in the super afterwards for 407 damage, which is pretty good. You know, it's not maximum damage, but it is still a lot. You also get a pretty cheaper and still damaging alternative with Donkey Kick. You can combo that into a Shoryuken, and only a Shoryuken. The Tatsu buff, you can't do a Tatsu afterwards, and you can also only do the Shoryuken without spending an additional bar for an EX Shoryuken if you have V-trigger. It'll only work if you have the additional juggle from the V-trigger 1. So I definitely recommend using V-trigger 1 with the thrust strike. That seems like a much better idea. So those are some of the combos you can get. My personal favorite one is actually when you're in the corner. This is fun. You can actually do, if I don't screw it up, it's still new, I'm working on it, guys. If you're in the corner, you can do a double Shoryuken combo in the super for a bit more damage than just a singular one. That combo is just fun. Double Shoryuken combos are always fun. And of course, now with the V-trigger 1 buff, you don't have to worry about spending any V-gauge doing the double Shoryuken combos. That's not directly connected to the V-skill 2, I just felt like mentioning that because it makes me feel good. But, yeah. So, Ryu's V-skill 2, its main use will definitely be against characters with longer range on the normals, like Karen, Colleen, Urian, even Alex to an extent. You know, just those characters with those really long pokes. This will help Ryu a lot in dealing with it, as not only does he get a long-ranged move himself, but one that counters opponents on the way. So, yeah, I think this will be a very good V-skill for Ryu. And compared to his V-skill 1, is it better? Is it worse? I think Capcom actually did a really good job here, because I wouldn't really say it's better or worse. It has its very own specific use, completely different than his V-skill 1. And like I said, while it will help him in specific matchups, it doesn't go through fireballs, only regular attacks. It will go through jump-ins and lows as well, but it's not going to cover fireballs. So against, like, Guile, you're definitely going to go with V-skill 1, so you can parry those fireballs. But, yeah, as a whole, it's a very different maneuver, which I'm very happy with. Again, we all thought it was pretty much going to be another parry, but it is its own thing with its own use, and it's very different, so I find it hard to compare to his V-skill 1, which is really good, because it gives Ryu multiple options that will both be useful for your preference. I feel like Ryu's always had pretty good luck when it comes to the multiple choice options for things. He had one of the best selections of supers in Street Fighter 3, and now he has a pretty good selection of V-skills. I mean, his V-trigger 2 is kind of wonky, but you know, I love it. So yeah, V-skill 2, I think it'll be very useful in a lot of matchups, and I need to work on those combos. So, yeah, those are all the changes and additions to Ryu. What do you guys think? I think Ryu's going to be pretty good this season, because, again, this V-skill 2, this covers one of his main weaknesses, being his stubby normals. This is not stubby at all. This has more range than most attacks in the game. This thing is huge. And combine that with the slightly increased range on his crouching medium kick, and also the ability to combo into Tatsu after it, guaranteed. And the redonkulous range on the heavy donkey kick, Ryu's neutral is definitely in a better spot. And his pressure with that the donkey kick buff. So yeah, Ryu, I think he's doing pretty good in this season. V-trigger buff definitely stands out the most. I'm actually going to use Ryu's V-trigger one now. I know I love the V-trigger too, but I always said that if V-trigger 1 actually becomes good, I will use it, and it is good. I'm still not over it, guys. Ryu finally has a good V-trigger. I can't believe it. After 4 years, he finally has an actually good V-trigger. I love it. It's very nice. So, yeah, what do you think of Ryu's changes? Do you think he's going to be a bit better this season? Do you think people will actually play him? Will we see him in tournaments? I hope so, because, you know, I like Ryu. He's my favorite Street Fighter character, so, you know, I've been through the good, the bad, the ugly. Ugly was definitely Season 2. So, you know, yeah, I think Ryu will be pretty good now. He's not going to be top tier or anything. That's out of the question. But he's definitely going to be better. So that I am happy with. I've blabbered on long enough. I'll see you guys in the next video. I have to record a bunch of new videos now. I had a stockpile from a session. I had a bunch of videos ready. It was going to be like 5 or 6 videos, but then Capcom had to just release the patch out of nowhere. So I gotta utilize these new tools and things in the video. So yeah, bye.